Hey, welcome. Today we're going to talk about something huge. A truly planet-sized idea, a new kind of infrastructure that acts like a global safety net for everyone. Let's dig in and see what that's all about.
I want you to just picture this for a second. You're in your car, maybe on a plane, maybe just walking around looking for a new cafe, and poof, the little blue dot on your map just disappears. And it's not just your phone, it's everyone's. Planes, cargo ships, ambulances, they're all suddenly flying blind. It's a pretty terrifying thought, isn't it? Well, that exact vulnerability is the problem we're looking at today.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at just how fragile our current connection to all this tech really is. Then, we'll introduce the big solution, the living ground mesh. We'll get into its super smart ingredients, see how all the pieces click together, and then, the most important part, we'll explore what this could mean for building a safer world for every single person on it.
All right, so to really get why this new idea is such a game changer, we got to first look at the shaky ground we're all standing on right now.
We don't really think about it much, but almost everything we do relies on a handful of very fragile, very centralized systems. Your phone, global trade, emergency services, they all point back to a few key hubs, a lot of them floating way up in space. And when you have one central point, you have one single point of failure. If that goes down, the ripple effects are massive.
And believe me, there are a ton of ways these systems can fail. Sometimes it's simple congestion, just too many people trying to use it at once. Signals can get jammed or interfered with. Then you have the big stuff, natural disasters, wars, or even just old infrastructure finally giving out. But maybe the biggest failure of all is that these systems were never really built for everyone. Billions of people still live in places with unreliable or even zero access. That's a huge gap, not just in convenience, but in basic safety.
Okay, so that's the pretty scary problem. Now let's talk about this incredible solution. Instead of a few big, breakable towers, I want you to imagine a network that works more like the root system of a giant forest, or like a spider's web that covers the entire planet. Strong, flexible, and connected everywhere. That's the big idea here.
They're calling it the living ground mesh. So let's unpack that. Terrestrial just means it's on the ground, not in space. That makes it way, way more resilient to all kinds of problems. And self-healing, well, that's where the magic is. If one part of the network gets knocked out, say by an earthquake, the rest of the web just automatically finds a new way around the damage. It doesn't collapse, it adapts.
And this isn't just some far-off science fiction dream. This is a real architectural plan, a framework being proposed by a company called Tedford Enterprises. They're trying to make this planetary safety net a reality.
So what's the secret sauce? What actually makes this mesh living and so mind-blowingly smart? Well, it all comes down to two incredible technologies working hand in hand.
Think of it like this. On one hand, you have artificial intelligence. That's the network's brain. It's constantly watching all the data, learning from it, and instantly fixing any little problems it sees. On the other hand, you have quantum technology. These are the network's super senses. They provide measurements and timing so precise, it's almost impossible to imagine. It's like being able to hear a pin drop from the other side of the planet.
Now, having a super brain and super senses is awesome. But the real breakthrough, the real magic, is how these parts work together with the mesh in a constant, never-ending loop.
This cycle is everything. Here's how it works. First, the quantum senses take a ridiculously accurate measurement of the world. Step 2, the ground mesh zips that information across the network in an instant. Step 3, the AI brain grabs that data, checks it against everything else it knows is true, and makes tiny corrections to keep everything perfectly in sync. And then, it does it again. And again. Millions of times a second, constantly learning and making itself stronger. And that right there is the big leap.
For the longest time, quantum tech has basically been a lab experiment. It's been way too delicate and fragile to use in the real world. But by plugging it into this smart, self-healing network, you suddenly give it a stable home. It moves from being a curiosity to a practical tool we can actually use every single day.
So yeah, the tech is incredible. But let's talk about what really matters. What does all this actually mean for people, for us, for humanity? This is where the whole thing gets truly powerful.
See, this isn't about giving faster internet to big cities that are already connected. This is about creating a brand new baseline of safety and connection for everyone. This means a village tucked away in the mountains can finally have communication that never, ever fails. It means that first responders going into a disaster zone will have navigation that is always perfect. It means bringing the same level of security and opportunity to the most underserved parts of the world that right now only the wealthiest places enjoy. It's about leveling the entire playing field for humanity. And crucially, the whole system is being designed around the right principles from the very beginning. The idea isn't to control people or to create walls. The entire point is to be transparent, to work with other technologies, and to be open for every single person to use, no matter who they are or where they live. The core mission is simple: to preserve life.
So this leaves us with a pretty incredible question to think about. If we can build this smart, self-healing foundation, a digital ground beneath our feet that serves everyone equally, are we witnessing the beginning of a truly more equal, more connected, and fundamentally safer world? That feels like a future worth building. Thanks for joining me on this one.